All right, what's going on, everybody? It's another week, another What the F happened. This show's all about the news, and it's about the news you don't read about that we get in white papers and economic reports. It's about the truth. That's what this show's all about, and that's why it's called What the F. Well, we're going to rant, we're going to rave, and we will argue with those who want to. I guess that's the best way to say it. Although we no longer stream live on TikTok, that arguing hasn't really had to happen. But today there's so much to talk about. I want to talk about the real housing crisis. I know it's not what you think, but we're going to hit on that. We're going to talk about the Trump tax bill that might actually get voted on Wednesday for the final approval or disapproval, but it looks like it's going to move forward. We're going to talk about the things that happened over in the Middle East, how Trump's bringing back about $2 trillion of business for American companies. We're going to talk about Walmart and how Walmart is saying that they're going to have to raise prices due to tariffs, and Trump is saying you should swallow it. Well, that's an interesting one because Walmart is one of the largest employers in the United States of America. So when they sneeze, well, we all feel that breeze. With that being said, there's a lot more we're going to cover on this show, but we're going to be right back after this. All right, we are back at it another week, which means another week of What the F. Some of you I know love this show. Some of you probably just come on here to hear us rant, rave, and argue with everybody. But I'm joined here with my host, Mr. Snaggy. What's happening down there in Florida?
Hey, what's up? Good morning, Chris. What's up, everyone? How you doing? It's been a wild week in the news for sure. I know we're going to get into some of the financials, real estate, the bond markets, what's going on with the tariffs, and everything else that the administration and President Trump have been up to. But we got to hit on kind of the headlines, what came out over the last week, which is, of course, ex-president, President Joe Biden was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4 cancer. It looks very not good for him. It's very bad. It's a lot of controversy surrounding that. When he knew about it, was it covered up? What did that look like? And that coincides also with other huge news this week that came out from Jake Tapper. The journalist Jake Tapper of CNN wrote a tell-all book called Original Sin, which is very interesting. The lead anchor at CNN comes out with a book telling about all the lies that he told and his network told over the last 4 years. So very, very odd right there. But I want to get into that a little bit. And yeah, man, Chris, just a lot happening for sure. So we'll dive into it all this morning.
Yeah, it's sad news to hear about, Biden and, stage 4 cancer. That's never good, not good at all. So, his days, months, weeks might be numbered, but it just does really beg to question, how is it that someone can have stage 4 cancer, the president who has access to the best medical care in the world, and nobody knew? I don't know. I'm not buying it. And I read a whole bunch of reports. I'm not going to really go too deep into the whole Biden thing because it is sad no matter what, no matter whether you liked Biden, hated Biden, doesn't matter. Listen, when someone has stage 4 cancer, you have to take the stance of it doesn't matter what your thoughts are. That's just a tragic thing, because, well, stage 4 cancer, it's a tough one. Even with his best, the best medical care that he can get, I just don't know, Stephen. I don't know. But nonetheless, you definitely should be asking the questions. Who knew? Why did they need to tell anybody? Obviously, if you watched any of the stuff with Biden, you could see there was certainly some issues there, some things that we all took notice on, falling down, crashing his bike, all those different things. I mean, could any of that have to do with the cancer? I don't know. Nonetheless, it's kind of a silly thing to talk about, but it's definitely worthy of bringing up. But let's actually talk about another thing that actually I want to talk about. And I I've been, as you all know, I fly a lot, and I absolutely hate flying right now. I mean, I never used to hate flying, but right now it's worse than it was after the pandemic. It is absolutely miserable to fly. The airlines and all the things happening. You're seeing it on the news, from airline crashes to airline rollovers, all sorts of things. Who's to blame? Airlines clipping other airlines on the tarmac, airlines almost going out into active runways and hitting other planes. I mean, come on. Like, it's just, you got to really look at it. And listen, from someone that flies every week, or was flying every week, I am on a moratorium right now from flying. I've canceled some trips. I'm not taking new trips. I'm telling people that want me to speak, I'm not flying anywhere. You got to literally, the only way I'd fly somewhere is if somebody sent a private jet to get me, or send a bus. Like, I'll just take a bus, a train. Like, that's how I want to travel. Because the things I've witnessed and the things I've seen flying the last 3 to 4 months is like nothing I've ever seen before. Staffing delays, mechanical issues. I was on and also too, one thing you could do to avoid some of this is just avoid New York City airports. Avoid JFK like the plague. That airport, I swear to God, 2 times I've been left with the flight leaving early, or I've gotten to the gate late because of delays, staffing delays and other things, to get to the gate before the departure, to have the door closed, to get in arguments with the gate agents and the red jacket Delta representatives, who none of them want to help you in any way, shape, or form. And now had an argument this morning. They broke one of my bags. No big deal. Normally, Delta, Stephen would tell you, they would just replace your bag. I sent them the receipts. I sent them the photos and everything. And then they just keep asking more unrelated, stupid questions. So the reason I went on that little rant there is because right here in the news, finally, we get some clarity as to what the fuck is going on with airlines. And here it is. Airline CEOs say air traffic control systems are failing Americans. You don't say. There are some serious issues going on right now with air traffic control. And we know this. I mean, from DEI to all the issues that were happening, it's been all over the news. But like, now they're finally admitting it. The major airline CEOs are saying, hey, we need to approve billions of dollars in funding to modernize the United States' aging air traffic control systems, saying it's failing Americans. Is it failing Americans, or is it actually killing Americans in some cases? Stephen, what's your take on this? Because I know you fly not quite as much as me, and you're always a positive guy when it comes to flying. I seem to be the only one who literally, I feel like I just get shit on by the airlines.
I've taken flying to an entire different realm of the universe, and I look at flying as something that is completely necessary and completely out of my control. So when I fly, I go to the airport with the mindset of, if I get there, awesome. If I don't get there, I'm going to just make the best of it and enjoy my time, whatever I'm doing. I have the Delta Sky Club membership I take full advantage of when I get to the airport. Palm Beach International is an absolutely wonderful airport, one of the best airports in the country. So I'm very lucky to have a strong home airport to fly out of. I fly into Atlanta, which is the world's busiest airport. So if things do go wrong in Atlanta, odds are there's another flight right there ready to take me to wherever I need to go. So that's my travel pattern. And occasionally I get canceled, I get delayed, but for me, it's just kind of become a mindset where I don't let it affect me, because Chris, I'm not going to lie, I used to be very, very, very upset about canceled flights and delays, and I would get very mad and my blood pressure would boil. And I just a few years back just said, I'm done. It is what it is. I'm going to go with it. And ever since I've kind of made that mental change, it's made all the world of difference in my life, at least.
Yeah. I think that's the way to do it. And like, I missed a connection to go to Amsterdam for a trip I was supposed to go out to Croatia on. And I kind of did that, the same thing you did. I just came to the consensus as, hey, I wasn't meant to be on that plane. Something bad could have happened to me in Croatia. You never know. I just look at it now like, I hate the airlines. I'm not going to go away from that, because I just think that that article tells all. I just think that they're inundated. They're just not running a clean business, a good business, and they just don't give a shit. But the fact that, I missed the flights or missed the connections, you're right. Right. Just meant to happen. I was meant to be home with my daughter, who turned 5 this weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. I'm glad I didn't go to Croatia. Don't miss it. Not upset about it. Just Sick of how they deal with customers. That's all, Stephen. That's all. Just sick to death of it. But let's move on to another topic. Let's talk about the Trump tax bill. This is a controversial thing, and I'm in the middle, Stephen. I like a lot of the things in the Trump tax bill, and selfishly for reasons like, getting the bonus depreciation back to 100%. Obviously, that benefits me from a tax standpoint. I can invest in oil. I can invest in different things. People can go out and buy equipment for their businesses, vehicles over 6,000 pounds for their business, and get 100%, bonus depreciation on those vehicles if they qualify and do it the proper way. So, it's a really positive thing because it puts money back in business owners and businesses' pockets because they get a bigger tax deduction. And there's lots more in the Trump tax bill. But why don't we do this, Stephen? Let's just take a few minutes because this is a big deal. It's a big deal on two ends. Number one, it will put money in Americans' pockets from a tax standpoint. They will pay less in taxes. Number two, significantly less for some folks. Number two, it adds to the deficit, which is another big topic we got to hit today because there is a massive runaway problem with the U.S. deficit. And with interest rates not going down, the interest being paid on these debts that the U.S. has and the trajectory of where these debts are going to go is a massive problem. Ray Dalio was literally saying it is the problem we need to be focusing on. And I think we're seeing that because the bond yields today, and I haven't seen this in forever, 30-year Treasury bond yields are over 5%. They might not hold there. 10-year Treasury bonds are in the mid fours. Now, listen, I'm going to say that could be a good thing for some when, because you're getting paid more for holding those treasuries, but it isn't good at all. It's basically a telltale sign that people are losing faith in the United States of America's ability to repay its debt. And that could have long-term effects if they don't correct this. So you got to kind of put this on the balancing scale, Stephen, and say, okay, the Trump tax credits, yes, good on some levels, but the deficit, the impact of the deficit over the next 10 years, not good. So let's just discuss what the Trump tax plan is and what is this tax bill going to do besides tips aren't taxed. Go ahead. Let me have you lead this one.
Yeah, I mean, on the debt, I mean, I completely agree, especially when it comes to the national debt and the deficit. I mean, we created a great solution when they came out with Doge and Elon Musk was heading it, and they've really set things in place. But now it's up to Congress, it's up to the government to actually take action and implement, what they found and what they proposed. And so we're almost at a pivotal point in history right now, in my opinion, where are we going to move in that right direction, or are we going to stick with the status quo and keep going down this unsustainable path, which every single person seems to agree that there's a huge problem with this national debt and the deficit. So where are we going to go with it? And this big, beautiful bill, doesn't seem to address that honestly, Chris, but I can kind of read through some of the highlights that are put out by the White House. Is that where you want me to get into?
Yeah, let's just dive in. Let's just hit the high level parts that make up the Trump tax bill. Besides the
okay, so this is put out from the White House. So take it what it's worth. We have to dig into each part, but what they're saying about this bill. So, here's what they're saying. So let's kind of hit the main topic. So American Exploration and Production Council CEO Ann Barbary, on behalf of America's leading independent producers of oil and natural gas, all House Republicans have passed the budget reconciliation and advance President Trump's agenda to unleash American energy. So, can we use, so energy, I know is a big part of it, Chris. So can we use energy as a way to start tackling some of this? Are there ways that we could bring more production to the country? What does that look like? So that's one piece. Here, I might have the wrong one pulled up. So these are just different CEOs and people talking about the bill, why they are encouraging it. Let me pull up the other one real fast, Chris. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I have one too if you can't find it.
Yeah, go ahead if you want to.
No, you'll find it. You had it pulled up. You just pulled the wrong one. You got it?
Here, keep rolling for 1 second. Give me a minute.
All right. Well, here, while he's doing that, one of the big things I want to hit on today's show is I want to definitely, and I want your feedback, folks. I want to talk about, I just did a podcast and I'm going to be doing a YouTube video on this so you guys can get more in depth than we're going to get in today. But what I think, and listen, I'm not the only one that thinks this, but I definitely am on the minority side. I think there is a major housing crisis happening right now. I've been doing a lot of research. I've got tons of notes. I've got lots of data. I've got lots of factual reports that are coming out. And, when we did the research on this, we had a really hard time finding data. I had the whole team. I challenged them. I said, find data on this because we're not seeing it. But when I drive around just little old Buffalo and suburbia, towns, I see it every day. And I just can't ignore what I think is something that's not being covered, not really being talked about. It's definitely hush hush, but I think it is literally a major housing crisis, a major issue. And it all stems back to the belief, and every realtor you'll ever talk to, you're going to hear the same thing. There's a housing shortage in the United States of America. Okay. We all know that, right? Can you all agree there's a housing shortage? Because there is. But the developers and all the real estate experts got it way fucking wrong. And we're going to hit that today. Stephen, did you find it?
Yeah, I have the one from the tax foundation. Is that the one you want me to go through?
No, yeah, the tax bill.
From the tax foundation. Here, I'll show you. I guess maybe I don't have the article you're referring to.
Exactly. And I'll pull one up too in a second. Just wanted to run through. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so just run through some of the details of this what they're calling the big beautiful bill.
You got to love the name of it first off. But so this is the tax foundation. They analyze these things. Basically, the House of Ways and Means Committee is scheduled to mark up the tax portion of the House Budget Reconciliation Bill on May 13th, addressing the expirations of 2017 tax cuts, making additional changes to U.S. tax policy. The Ways and Means Committee released the full text on the 12th and titled it the One Big Beautiful Bill. Preliminary analysis finds the tax provisions included in the May 12th text would increase long-run GDP by 0.6% and reduce federal tax revenue by $4.1 trillion from 25 to 2034. On a conventional basis, on a dynamic basis, accounting for economic growth, the revenue reduction would fall by 19% to $3.3 trillion over 10 years before added interest costs. Overall, the bill would prevent tax increases on 62% of taxpayers that would occur if the TCJA expired as scheduled. However, by introducing narrowly targeted new provisions and sunsetting the most pro-growth provisions like bonus depreciation and research and development expensing, it leaves economic growth on the table and complicates the structure of the tax code. The House passed budget resolution would allow $4.5 trillion increase in the deficit from tax cuts over the next decade, so long as spending is cut by $1.7 trillion. But if spending is not cut by $1.7 trillion, the cap on tax cuts will be reduced dollar for dollar. And it just gets into some of these details on this.
I think this is the important stuff. I mean, obviously, you all know, the impact of the bonus depreciation. If you don't, just look it up or talk to any CPA. It's a, bonus depreciation had fallen, now this year it's 40%. And if they go retro with it, we'll be able to go back and amend prior tax returns up to the 100%, which I still have not seen whether they're going to allow us to go retro on the bonus depreciation. But my guess would be they probably will. And same thing my CPA said. So let's talk about how this really affects just the average American, because the way I see it, Stephen, right now, and the stuff I read is the average American is having a hard time affording groceries, having a hard time affording bills, and credit card debts are running out of control into the record books with credit card debts. And with the Fed holding rates higher longer, credit card companies are just feasting on this with 20+% credit card interest rates and people financing groceries on buy now, pay later programs. So all those things piss me off. Okay. And there's a lot of things that piss me off. I'm not going to get into it about that, but this tax bill does affect many of those Americans that are struggling to pay for groceries and put more money back in their pockets because they're not going to be taxed on all the things. So I didn't mean to go on that rant, but just pull that back up and let's just hit on some of these individual benefits to how it will help just the average American.
Yeah, I mean, so it's increasing inflation adjustments for all brackets, makes the expiring standard deduction levels permanent, and temporarily boosts the standard deduction by $2,000 for joint filers or $1,500 for head of household. Makes the
That
personal
definitely puts money back in their pocket.
absolutely makes a personal exemption elimination permanent. $750,000 limitation exclusion of interest on home equity loans for the home mortgage interest deduction.
Yeah, they were going to take that away. I hope you all know that. So you wouldn't have been able to deduct the interest on your home mortgage or HELOCs, home equity loans.
This one's huge for you in New York, Chris, but make this what's known as SALT deduction cap permanent at a higher threshold of 30,000, phasing down to 10 at a rate of 20%. Which SALT just simply means that you can deduct your state and local tax from your federal tax bill.
Dude, my state taxes are well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Just is actually it's actually pretty controversial too, because it is
very controversial.
You know, in my view, where in the state of Florida, where we do not have a state income tax because we properly budget and know how to run the state, you know, we don't have anything to deduct there, but now you're getting to deduct your state income tax because your state doesn't know how to run your state. So they got to charge these ridiculous taxes to you guys. And now you get to reduce that from your federal tax that you're paying. So I don't know, but anyway,
you literally can just boil it down if you really want to just get to it. The SALT, really, the controversy comes because California and New Yorkers benefit tremendously. So selfishly, I love it, but right. I get it. Texas, you know, well-run states, Utah, Texas, Florida, like you guys get screwed because you're not getting anything for that. And we're benefiting from it because we can't run a state.
Let's see. Limit the value of itemized deductions to 35 cents on the dollar. Make other change of limitations to itemized deductions permanent, including different casualty losses, wage losses. So just different deductions that they'll make permanent. Expiring child tax credit permanent. Temporarily increase the maximum credit to $2,500, and then inflation adjust the 2,000 max in years thereafter. So the child tax credit I know is a big one, Chris.
A really big one, especially for families or, you know, mothers, you know, single mothers, all that's huge for them. And then also that thing that they've been talking about where they're going to set up that savings program for kids, almost like a 401k for a kid. Like that's huge. If you haven't looked into that. Now I know it's after tax dollars, but it still allows us to tax defer money for our kids. And then our kids get to use it when they're of age.
Yeah. And I've seen the Democratic Party doing some weird stuff around children lately. Like, you know, Michelle Obama came out on her podcast last week and went on this really bizarre rant, how she feels like the nuclear family hurts America and how people shouldn't rely on family units and you know, and all that stuff. And, you know, it's wild for her to say that because, you know, common sense as well as data shows us that, you know, having both parents at home and having a household intact is one of the leading ways for success for children and for underprivileged kids and minorities to be able to break through by having actual family units. So it's odd for her to say that. And then Hillary Clinton came out just this week on this show talking about how she feels like, you know, Americans should have less kids and we don't want more children. And that's what all these immigrants are for, to do the work, because Americans shouldn't be having as many kids as they're having. And it's really weird to see Democrats.
That person needs to look at what China did, and they need to look at other countries that have done similar things to what they're saying and watch how
Hillary Clinton. Yeah.
I mean, that shouldn't even need to say the name. I mean, it's just idiotic.
Yeah, just really bizarre stuff, man.
Hey, just a real quick side note. Did you see the roast where Elon Musk roasted Bill Gates because of what he was saying just regarding children and all that stuff? Did you see that?
Yes.
That was pretty freaking awesome. Elon, you know, you got to just love the way Elon he just goes right into it, man. Right into it. Went right into the Epstein Island, you know, visits to Bill Gates. And then the reporter was trying to back Bill Gates and say, yeah, but he then donated a bunch of money. Listen, like, Elon was right in that one. That was good. So if any of you haven't seen the Elon roast of Bill Gates, it's a good watch, a short watch. Good. But anyway, nonetheless, like we've got all this stuff going on with the tax, you know, the very controversial tax bill that is likely going to get passed Wednesday. Somebody just said they just agreed to a 40% SALT. And that's probably one of the most controversial parts, one of the things that was really standing in the way. So that's all gone through. So, well, deficit goes up, not good for bonds. So do you want to talk about bonds real quick, Stephen, or do you want to keep going?
Yeah, just to kind of, finish this up. I know they're pushing for no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. That's all stuff that
Social Security never should have been taxed in the first place. Let me just put that one out there.
That's all stuff that's super important for people that are struggling for money right now, especially
seniors, man. And seniors are struggling huge.
Yeah, we can move on from this, but just
a bunch of stuff with the state tax limits and all sorts of really great things, especially. And I know, and part of the controversy around the tax bill, and then I'll get off this topic, is, if you really read into it, it benefits the wealthy. The bonus depreciation benefits business owners and more affluent people. You got the estate tax limits and maintaining the high estate tax limits benefiting more wealthy individuals. So it's easy for some of the folks out there. I don't want to just say the Democrats, but just some of the folks saying, "Oh, this is the tax bill for the wealthy." It is, but it's also a tax bill for the American population, the American people, because not taxing tips, not taxing Social Security, all these child tax credits, these different savings programs like that, all puts more money in just about every American taxpayer's pocket. Period. The problem is that it adds to the deficit. And, it was interesting. You were saying 4-point-some trillion, and I saw 3.3 trillion, but nonetheless, the deficit's already out of control. It's blossoming. This, Trump, I'll just call it out. Trump, ran saying he was going to bring the country back and get our budgets back in order, but it doesn't seem to be. Now, I know we're 5 months into this. Okay. But it just seems like the spending is out of control. The Doge, cuts, and I know Elon's back running Tesla because, he had to, but the Doge cuts just they came out strong. They were great, but they kind of petered, and they petered because of the court system blocking it. So don't blame Doge. Don't blame Elon Musk or Trump. It's the fucking courts and the stupid judges. And I'll call this one out. The Democratic judges who are stonewalling all of the Doge cuts, and that's kind of where the roast came with Elon Musk. He was talking about, that aid. Anyway, nonetheless, Doge cuts were working until the judges stepped in and stonewalled it. And then you got the tariffs, that's a whole nother topic, which we'll get into today, because, there's been a lot of headroom over in the Middle East, with all that, that just you've seen in the news every single day. That's all positive. About $2 trillion coming back, to the U.S. in terms of business that will come over here. And also hopefully, it's great that $2 trillion is coming here, but what's even greater? Peace in the Middle East. Come on, let's not forget that. We've been the Middle East has literally been at war for as long as I can remember. I mean, feel like my entire life. And if we can bring peace there through these partnerships and these alliances, that's the silver lining. And the money's great, but the peace is even better. Where do we want to go from there, Stephen?
Oh man,
we can hit
the last thing I wanted to mention on this big beautiful bill, just selfishly speaking, there are some cutouts in there to possibly eliminate taxes and all the regulations on suppressors and silencers, as well as short barrel rifles and shotguns. So to me, the Second Amendment shall not be infringed are some of the most important words in the Constitution. And to see them working on this and actually getting rid of some of these unconstitutional rules is huge. So I love that part of the bill, just personally speaking. So,
all right. So what do we got? Let's pause real quick. We got any good questions over here in the chat? I don't see anything coming in really from Instagram, but what do we got?
Justin was asking, what do you mean it's bad for bonds? It's a great buy right now. TLT is at all-time lows, basically. Buy.
I love it. It's bad for bonds because it with the downgrade with Moody's, which is the third of the three rating agencies, basically lowering the rating on the United States of America, it just puts question in, and not, I agree. And we're going to cover that. And I'll show a chart. I'm still buying treasury bonds. And I know I've had a bunch of people on some social media sites that I've said this. and say that I'm an idiot, that, the U.S. could default and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I believe in the U.S. I always have. Like, I live in the United States of America, the greatest country on earth, and I believe in the United States of America. I believe in, in Trump, and I think he will eventually turn things around, but it's going to take time. We're going to go through a lot of pain to get there, but I believe in the United States of America. So therefore, I will invest in the United States. Yes, the downgrades, Moody's now makes it the first time ever in our history that we've had all three of the rating agencies downgrade us, but that isn't good for foreign investment. So, foreign investments, countries like Japan, and I don't know if Japan so much it would affect, but China and all these other countries, they're looking at the U.S. not as the safe haven. And I think investors are looking at the U.S. as not being the safe haven, or the investment into the treasury bonds not being the safe haven that it once was, because of the deficit and the running out of control deficit. And listen, make no two ways about it. Trump has done nothing to decrease the deficit at this present point. It will probably be decreased by tariffs, but you can't spend like a drunken sailor and then also cut. You gotta bring it into balance. And the only president, and I hate to use this name, that was able to do that in my time was Clinton. And he was, so you can't say it's not possible if dipshit Clinton was able to get it done, because he did. And maybe he's not a dipshit, okay, because he was able to bring it into balance. So why can't Trump, if he's so good at business, balance this motherfucker? Balance it. Bring it into balance. Now, let me go to Justin's take on bonds. Yes, there's a lot of question about, like, is buying debt from the U.S. or is investing in the U.S. is basically what you're doing as safe as it once was. Well, that's in the eye of the beholder. I will certainly tell you that because of what's going on, it has created one hell of a buying opportunity. Why is it not letting me show this? Sorry, I'm trying to find my Thinkorswim. I've got it pulled up, but for some reason, it's just not letting me show it. But nonetheless, I'll just talk through it because it's not letting me share my screen. Treasury, well, if you were looking at TLT, not making an investment recommendation or giving investment advice, this is just the one that I happen to buy, this one in ZROS. But right now, we are sitting at $84.91. And that is off of the highs. And I'll just go up to the highs. So like a high point since June of last year, so a 12-month rolling, was $101. So you can buy it at $84, $84.92. Thank you, Stephen. Buy it at roughly 84, give or, down 15%, okay, in the past 2 years. And just in the last year, the high point was 101. The high point of all time, I think, was like 160s. And when was that? Well, it was a period of time when the Fed dropped interest rates quickly. And do we think the Fed will drop interest rates if we enter a recession? Yes, they always do. If the economy weakens, do we think that they're going to drop interest rates? Absolutely. There's a little bit of a tug of war right now between the Trump administration and the Fed saying they're going to hold, and they could hold for the duration of the year. Because listen, until we start losing the jobs reports start really showing decreases, which we already are going down, but we're not enough, then they're going to just probably hold rates. And if they hold rates, then the price of the bonds more than likely will not increase. They're like, we'll stay in this little holding pattern or this declining pattern because of the faith in the bonds. So it's bad, but like Justin said, it's good because it's buy low and sell high. There's no freaking way, at least in my professional opinion, there's no freaking way the government's going to default on bonds. Not in the time frame I'm going to be holding them. Probably not even in the next 10 years if you own 10 year treasury bonds. But you got to remember, if you buy a 10-year treasury or a 30-year treasury, you're not locked in. You're just, it basically is said that if you put $1,000 into a U.S. treasury bond, a 30-year, in 30 years, you get your $1,000 back and you made the interest along the way, period. And no deviation in price. That's how bonds work. You get your money back. So what they're saying now is there's risk in that long-term approach of looking at treasuries. To me, I'm not playing the long game. I'm not playing a 30-year game. I'm not playing a 10-year game. I'm playing like a 1 to 2 year game here. All I'm waiting for is something to happen to the economy, which, listen, like, I can even get it wrong every single time, but the economy eventually is going to go down. I think sooner than later is my opinion. But when it goes down, the Fed will react. They have to. They'll drop interest rates. When they drop interest rates, the price will go up, even if there's still hesitation of the security or the safety of a U.S. Treasury bond. It's just how it works. So to Justin's point, yeah, great buying opportunity. I'm buying. And that just, listen, makes it even better for dollar cost averaging lower. It's just, you just got to understand, like, the price may not come back up quite as quickly as we want. There's more pressures now than there was before. And it definitely puts that doubt in other countries and that doubt in investors' minds of, is the U.S. the almighty safe haven? What do you got pulled up here from Barron, Stephen?
Oh, just talking about bonds are a good bet again. Where to find yields of 6% or more. This kind of bonds are beckoning investors back. Result yields are on municipal junks, mortgage securities, preferred stocks are higher today than the start of 2025. You can get 8%, 7%, 6% returns, even on government agency mortgage securities, 5% on high grade long-term municipal bonds. Yields look particularly attractive with inflation running below 3%. Just talking about how strong the bond market.
Yeah, I mean, it's all positive, right? Like, if inflation's running around 3%, it's actually a little under that. And you can get right now 5% on a treasury bond, a 30-year treasury bond. Like, that's just like, give me the money. Like, you're getting paid for sitting on the sidelines. You're getting paid for literally, can't call it a guarantee, but it's guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. So if you're comfortable with that, well, then you're getting your money. I mean, like, we haven't seen this in a long time. I made a video, Stephen, back, I think, a year and a half ago. Me and Craig did a really amazing YouTube video, and I'll probably do another one where we showed that you could borrow money from your policies using the infinite banking concept, buy treasury bonds, use the interest paid on those treasury bonds to repay the policy loan interest. And at the time when we did it, the cost, the policy loan interest rate matched, or actually was a little lower than what it would cost or what you'd earn in interest from the treasury bonds. Now, that's a little different game today because most of the insurance companies are 5.25. So if you're getting 5 in a treasury bond and you're paying 5.25, you're not really hitting the rules that we set for infinite banking. But it still beckons to ask the question of, like, what else could we do? Like, that's a really good return. None of you are getting that kind of a return on your savings account right now. 5%, 4.5%. That's a great interest rate from a ultra safe investment like U.S. Treasury bonds. And that's what Stephen's, Barron's report was saying. So there's a lot of negative on bonds, but there's a whole hell of a lot of positive. So kudos to you, Justin. All right, what else do we want to hit on? I got
Jamie Dimone talking about markets showing extraordinary amount of complacency amid growing risks.
Oh, 100%. Like, let's definitely hit on that. So, folks, just in case you didn't understand that, because it was Stephen used some big words there. It's essentially the markets are sort of just closing their eyes to the risks and just pushing forward. Jamie Dimon. Or Dimone, is it Dimone or Diamond?
Diamond, sorry.
Diamond. You said Jamie Dimone. I'm like, who's Jamie Dimone?
I
thought I knew who you were talking about.
One of my favorite movies back in the day. That's how they call the guy. So I always joke around about it, and sometimes it slips out.
I used to not like Jamie, Dimone, Jamie Diamond, but like, I've really come to like him and his sentiment and how he looks at things. So do you want to hit on what he's saying here?
Yeah. This was actually sent to us by one of our watchers. So it's always fun to read articles and different topics that people share with us. And by the way, guys, if you ever see a story throughout the week, you're like, man, I'd love for them to talk about that or to kind of discuss it on What the F, just shoot it over to me in a text or email and we'll put it into the show agenda. It's always fun to be able to do that. So this was sent in from Jordan, but JP Morgan Chase, of course, the CEO, said Monday that the markets have not accounted for the risks of inflation, stagflation, credit spreads, tariffs, and other challenges. Diamond said at the bank's investor day that the chances of inflation and stagflation are greater than people think. Credit spreads haven't accounted for a potential downturn. The impact of tariffs is difficult to predict, and geopolitical risks are high. According to Bloomberg, the report said markets have recovered from declines seen when the Trump administration announced tariff policies. And when Moody's ratings, which we got to hit on too, Chris, by the way, Moody's ratings downgraded the country's credit rating from its top level. People feel pretty good because you haven't seen any effective tariffs, Diamond said during the event. The market came down 10%. It's back up 10%. I think that's an extraordinary amount of complacency.
Which it is. Where the markets are, it's almost, well, not today. I mean, because, hey, if you guys haven't looked at the markets, the futures are down 304 and they were actually down 400. So don't expect it to be a good day in the markets, but the markets have been completely complacent to what's actually going on. And that's what Jamie Dimon is saying. He's just like, in light of all these things, which typically would be negative sentiment for the markets and would usually drive the markets down, the markets just being incredibly resilient. But you know what, Stephen, when we go back to all the other stuff we've covered about the resilience of the market, is it really resilient, or is it just actually dominated by 7 to 10 stocks? Because I'll tell you something, and to follow up on that, I do have something that is actually worthy of discussing, and I'll show it right now. If you're following the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or even the NASDAQ, you're not getting a real picture. But if you're following the Russell, you're seeing exactly what's going on. So hopefully you can see this. This is a white paper from an economic white paper where he's talking about the Russell 2000 divergence. So as you can see, he's just showing the high points. And if the markets are so complacent and so resilient to all this stuff, and if you truly think, and a lot of people do, and I want to be clear about this, a lot of people truly think the markets are going to just keep going higher and higher. And I think a lot of that is the investors in the market have never seen the downside. Like I think we figured it out. Was it 38 years old or younger? They have no recollection of what a recession actually feels like and what it means to your personal life. Like other people older than 38 do. So because of that, you do have a lot of this resilient nature and investors that are willing to take on more risk than I think they should, or than they probably ever should, because they just don't understand the downside. But right here, this is just showing you the Russell 2000, which are small companies, okay, small cap stocks. So small cap stocks, not dominated by the Magnificent Seven or the almighty 10 stocks of the S&P 500. The Russell is not doing very good. It's tested. So you can see back here in, I believe, I don't know where that would have been, but 2025, 2024, 2025, it tested the highs again. Okay. In November, there it is, November 8th. It came up and it actually broke through the high point, which was 24.59. It hit 24.66, but very quickly pulled back strongly. So what this article is essentially saying is it could not break through the highs. So small companies are a better indicator than large companies because they're more nimble, they're faster, they can grow at a higher rate than a large company because it's harder to grow a large company. Small companies can't seem to get over the high point and literally are coming back, but not coming back strong. So what he's essentially saying is that there are many divergences building, but this is the most classic and most visible. Until the Russell 2000 can break convincingly above the 26 or 2466, it's best to continue to assume that the major long-term top in process here and will be followed by a major crash of plus 20%. So he's telling you that based on what we're looking at with the Russell, that you can still expect a crash. But you wouldn't think that if you're looking at, well, maybe today, but prior weeks, if you're looking at the Dow Jones, you're like, oh, it's great, everything's good, let's keep investing back in the markets. If you're listening to Kramer, I mean, my God, you're just playing with so much risk. Clinton has a surplus only because he had, I know. Rob is kind of defending like the anti-Clinton, like that he wasn't a great president. He had, let's just say in a nice way, Rob, let's just say that Clinton had a nice tailwind going into his presidency, which allowed him to do some pretty extraordinary things with the budget and so on. And yeah, the large tax increases, which affected lots of Americans, but hey, he balanced the budget. And that is something that we have not yet seen since. And right now, every index is down. Dow Jones, S&P, NASDAQ, and the Russell all down sharply. The VIX is up. So we're up 3% on the VIX right now. So volatility and fear are back, baby, back. All right, Stephen, what else we want to hit here?
I know we're going to talk a little bit about real estate, some of the different, mortgage rates, what's going on with housing, commercial and multifamily real estate.
I just so happen to have a lot of data on this. You want me to take the lead on real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get
All
into
right.
it.
So I got a lot of notes here. I've been fascinated by this because I just don't see this anywhere. So one of the biggest things that I got beat up a lot about, because I was kind of saying back 2 years ago, and everybody said I was wrong, and maybe I was, but maybe I was right. Maybe I was just early. They kept saying, "Oh, there's so much demand. There's so much demand for housing," and developers have been building and building and building. And Stephen, in your area, even more than here. But listen, every one of you listening to this, and we've got about 70 some folks on right now. Every one of you could drive around your town and you can see that there is apartment buildings being built everywhere. Okay, more so in Stephen's area in the Sun Belts, but there's apartment buildings being built everywhere. And why are they being built? Well, after the pandemic, okay, because this is pandemic, post-pandemic is what we're talking about. It was completely obvious that there was a major shortage in housing, and there still is. So right here's the stat. As of today, the demand versus supply, the housing shortage is anywhere between 1.5 million and 7 million units. Now, what we're talking about is a housing shortage of not just houses, but we're mixing in multifamily apartments. So housing and apartment units, places for people to live, there is a massive shortage. So what happened is after the pandemic, all the developers and big money and small money and all alike ran out there to buy apartment buildings and build apartment buildings, which now, because it takes a long time to build it, there's a lot of work that goes into developing ground up apartment complexes. They got to get them approved. They got to buy the land. They got to do the site work. They got to go vertical with it. So there's a lot that goes into that. So that's why right now, it looks to be so obvious that there's apartment buildings being built everywhere, because there is. But have you paid attention to what kind of apartment buildings are being built? This is where the developers and the entire real estate industry got it way fucking wrong, because all they're building are luxury 4 to 5 star apartment buildings. Stephen, when you drive around your town, how many affordable housing multifamily units are being built? And it's very easy to spot the difference between a luxury apartment complex and an affordable housing complex. How many affordable housings do you see?
There's zero affordable housing being built here right now.
Come on, comment in. Every one of you are coming in from a different part of this country, and maybe even Hawaii. We might have some folks from Hawaii. How many affordable housing multifamily apartment complexes do you see being built?
In fact, one of the affordable ones that they just built just a few miles down from where I live, it ended up having some kind of loophole where they were able to say at least 2% of the units, or some ridiculously small number, had reduced rents, and that allowed them to then advertise it and go through the zoning and the approvals and everything for affordable housing, little loopholes like that.
Look at this. No affordable. Mark Perry in Hawaii says 0. Mostly luxury apartments, said Michael. Exactly. Even here in Buffalo, which I used to poo-poo on Buffalo, but you guys realize Buffalo has secured the title for 2 consecutive years as the hottest housing market in the country due to high demand, low supply, and strong jobs growth. I live here. Don't invest your money in Buffalo real estate. Just telling you. But nonetheless, the pundits are saying it's the hottest housing market. Anyway, back to the numbers. So just like all of you said, let me give you the numbers that should surprise you. Right now, as of the report that I read, there are only 6,700 affordable apartments being constructed as now. Just these are new construction. How many luxury apartment complexes do you think are being built right now, under construction as of right now, Stephen? If 6,700 are affordable, how many do you think are luxury?
Out of the 6,700? Or out of how many?
No. Just total in the country. How many luxury apartment complexes do you think are being built right now?
Most of them.
500 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
500 million luxury apartment buildings under construction now, not including the ones that are already built and done. I'm saying the ones being constructed. But if you look at what the demand is, this major housing shortage, it is affordable housing. How do you define affordable housing? Well, let me tell you what that means. That means $1,332 a month or less. That is the definition of affordable housing.
Can they even build it for that?
That's why developers are not building affordable housing. Thank you, Stephen. It's because the profit margins are so thin that most developers can't even get fucking financing from banks to build affordable housing. But that's what the market needs, and that's what the market wants, and that's what the need for housing is. But yet the margins are so thin, developers, for most cases, can't even get those approved. So they have to do these luxury apartment complexes. To what Stephen said, some of them are smart enough to build like luxury, but they have provisions where they can drop rents, and maybe they've built like a mixed use of luxury versus affordable. But see the disconnect? We're not just talking about the disconnect in the markets. We're talking about a major disconnect in the housing industry that is going to have catastrophic effects. And hold on, the effects are already underway. Check this out. So first off, Stephen, when I was in real estate and I would look at an apartment complex, I would run a vacancy factor. Okay, so you're always going to have vacancy. I would run vacancy factors of anywhere between 3 and 5%. The industry average is around 5%. Right? So does anyone disagree with that? Any of you real estate investors? About 5% would be like the high side on vacancies right now. Where do you think the national multifamily vacancy rate is, Stephen? What do you think it is?
I honestly have no idea, man.
8%.
Okay.
As of late 2024, and probably higher right now.
Already higher.
But hold on. That's just the national multifamily. What do you think the vacancy rate of 4 to 5 star apartment complexes is?
More, higher.
11%. Okay, but hold on, it gets even worse. Let's go to the Sun Belts. Let's go to Florida and Texas, where they built massive amounts of luxury apartment complexes because of this demand that didn't exist, but they said because of the demand. The vacancy in luxury units is 15% and climbing. And with 21,000 units still under construction in the Sun Belts, that's 6.5% of the total inventory. Okay. Vacancy rates 15%. So here's what's happening. There's a major fire-fueled frenzy is what they called it. Okay. Of what these developers are doing. And they are being forced to reduce the rates on these luxury apartments. Okay. They're reducing the rates. There's a massive offering of 2 free months, which basically reduces the cost by up to 25% if you run a 12-month lease. So these landlords are dealing with massive vacancy rates, even as a national average of 8%. They're dealing with major vacancies. Their pro formas did not get built to support that. So even though when they went to their investors, and this is why I have never, and I've been very vocal about this and pissed a lot of people off, but I have never, ever felt comfortable with syndications where they raise money for these multifamilies, because I felt like it was always smoke and mirrors. And it was. I was right. I don't get everything right, but I was right about that, because these syndications, many of them have cut their prefs off. And there's many of you on here, I'm not going to call you out by names, who invested in syndications. And well, you're not getting your pref return anymore. Many of them have had capital calls because, well, they underestimated all the numbers because they lived in this fantasy world that never existed. Oh, there's so much demand. Yeah, the demand was affordable housing. You missed the boat altogether. You went for luxury. There isn't a demand for luxury. People can't afford luxury, and it's getting worse, and it's going to get way worse. So because they can't afford it, landlords are dropping prices, giving away free rent, and they're going to struggle. But hold on, it's going to get way worse. I've done no less than 5 YouTube videos on this right here. This is the crisis that you're about to see that's not being talked about anywhere, and it is a cliff. CRE loans, commercial real estate loans, which fills everything that we're talking about here. The loans that banks gave on commercial real estate, which is every multifamily out there. Okay. Right now, all of those loans are starting what we call the loan cliff, or there's many names for it, but I'll just call it the financial cliff they're about to go off, because all those loans were written with 5, 7, and 10-year maturities. So let's just do the math. 2020, when this demand started, what were interest rates? Shoot, I think, would I be safe to say, Stephen, 3%?
Yeah.
You could easily get a multifamily CRE loan at 3%,
Yes.
without a doubt. You could go to any bank and you probably get a 3% loan. We are 5 years now past 2020. So those maturities are starting. I've seen them in my own portfolio because I did real estate for quite some time. So we had a lot of our loans mature. So if you did a loan at 3% in 2020, what is it maturing at today? Well, I actually have all of those numbers and I can tell you exactly what it's going to mature at. Now, hold on and hold your breath. So right here, right now, if somebody was to have to get a new mortgage, the best rate, this is the best rate in multifamily right now, is 6.3%. You've got to be perfect credit, got to have all your ducks in a row to get 6.3%. So if you did all your pro formas based on 3%, your vacancy is now sitting at the lowest point of at least 8. And now your mortgage is going to reset or refinance at 6.3%. Your costs are almost doubling when your income is going down. But it gets way worse because there's then the 7-year cliff. So in 2 years from now, or realistically a year from now, depending on when these mortgages originated, you're going to have a massive amount of these cliffs happening, these maturities happen. And if the Fed doesn't drop rates, well, they're going to be maturing at just about where we're at now because we've held these rates. These mortgage rates have stayed the same for almost a year. And there's news here. Actually, let me just show it because this was headline news right here. Let me find it. I just don't want you folks to think I'm just talking out my ass. Like, I do so much research on this. We don't just show up to this show and just babble. Like, I spent hours this morning doing research, and this is all we ever do. And Stephen had our whole team doing research. So right here, check this out. Mortgage demand. Mortgage demand drops after interest rates jump to the highest level since February. Mortgage rates just went up. 6.86 is where they were. They're now 6.92%. When we already have a problem with houses, let's just talk single family homes, 25% of the US population is priced out of buying a new home. The average home in this country is over $458,000. My wife just showed me something. It blew my mind. She showed me a house. It was like 3,000 and some square feet in a decent neighborhood. It was $1.3 million. It was a 4-bedroom, 3 or 4 bath house or something like that. $1.3 million. Like my house, I live in a very nice house in a very prestigious neighborhood. And yes, we bought during the pandemic, so we bought well, but we bought for under $800,000. You couldn't build my house today for under $1.5 million. So people can't even afford houses at that. 25% of the population only 25% of the population can afford a house. 75% of the population cannot afford or qualify for a mortgage under today's interest rates. But yet the Fed keeps holding rates. All right, well, let's just keep driving this. So just trying to show you that all this is happening. And when these loans mature, these CRE loans mature, prices are going up significantly for multifamily or for real estate developers or real estate investors. What do you think the outcome is going to be? Not good, folks. So when I say there's a major housing crisis, what housing crisis I'm talking about? This one, because vacancies are going to go higher. UPS just laid off 25,000 people. Who's next? UPS is a leading indicator. Yeah. But yet, if you follow the S&P 500 and everything else, everything's great. Until you actually get into the weeds and look at this report. Stephen, Fred, what is they showing?
Just the delinquency rate of these commercial real estate loans you're talking about. So you can see, they've more than doubled over the last couple of years and continue to increase.
Yeah. Look at how much higher they are than where they were during the pandemic. Look at where they're at. If you see that, I wish we could go back further, because if we went back to 2009 after the Great Recession, we're approaching those levels.
Not quite yet, but yeah,
when we
first started. But then you can see it ramps up quick. I mean, that's a matter of a year and a half, and then it took a decade, almost a decade, to get back down. And so, how quickly can we rev back up?
So, folks, this is the housing crisis that you really need to be paying attention to. But yet, if you're just watching the news, if all the dipshits in their 401ks are just plowing money into the S&P 500 because, hey, nobody knows the difference, you are in for a real ass whooping. It'd be like, you walked into school and the biggest bully in school just took you outside and kicked the living shit out of you. That's what you're going to feel like if you keep playing the game with the stock market. That's exactly what it's going to feel like. And then for all you men, after you got your ass beat, you get a kick in the nuts. That's what this is going to feel like. So keep playing the game. Keep putting your money in the stock market. Keep just thinking it's going to go higher and higher. Yeah, that's going to play well for you. Or sit on the freaking sidelines and actually get paid to watch the show. Then you can literally just be on the side watching the guy who you don't like get his ass beat by the biggest bully in school. And then you watch a girl come over and kick him in the nuts. You're just sitting on the sidelines being like, man, this shit is fun.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Chris, that you bring all that up. I wasn't aware of those vacancy rates and kind of what was going on with them. But now that you say it, like, it makes all the sense of the world, because that's what I see, these fancy. And I've always thought it in my head, like, who's buying these places? Like, who's, or not buying them, but who's renting these places? Who's living in these places? It just hasn't made sense to me. And I think you're completely right, man. These developers completely got it wrong with what they built here. And I think it's going to affect stuff for years to come, for sure. One person did say over here, Steve said, are there tax benefits to vacant apartments?
I mean, less income means less taxes. So yeah, hey, great if you don't want to pay taxes, but not great if you're bleeding money. I mean, the syndications out there, I mean, I know a bunch of people that run syndications, and listen, like, there's good ones and there's bad ones, but I feel for them. Like, I think there's going to be massive problems with these syndication investments. And there's tons of money that was put into syndications. And I'm happy to say I can't say I've never invested in one. I did invest in one syndication. It has been a solid performer, but it's not a syndication that invests in multifamily. So, if you're in multifamily syndications that were promising all this stuff, well, I probably don't even need to tell you, because you're probably already dealing with the prefs aren't happening. You might have even had capital calls. It's not a good story, and it's not going to get any better. So the thing that you really want to invest in, if you were looking to invest, is affordable housing. You want to invest in, and I almost would say what the biggest demand is right now is single family homes that are affordable. And listen, say what you will of the Fullers, but that's exactly what they're building. Craig's been out there. A bunch of our team's been out and seen his developments. He builds affordable single family rentals, build to rents. So, like, yeah, I know he's got some cash flow issues, but his business model is absolutely spot on for what this country's demand is.
Yeah, and in Private Money Club, I mean, we've seen some really, really cool businesses emerging. I mean, we have one guy, his name's Rashad, but he's building these micro home communities, and they're really cool. They're very popular, and they're starting to sell like hotcakes right now. So it's really neat to see, when problems occur and there's issues that happen worldwide, how people come up with solutions, and and some of this stuff works out in the long run. I mean, Shane kind of hit it on the head right here in a weird way. Time for more trailer parks, but maybe not trailer parks.
Shane's absolutely correct, and so is Chris Rude, because he's doubling down on that.
You see some of these mobile homes nowadays, though, they're beautiful properties. I mean, they're not the trailer parks like you think of in the past. Like, these are nice properties now, nice homes for people, and they're affordable. That's the key word right there, affordable. And I think Chris Root's coming on soon to talk about that, right?
He is, Jack. I mean, we're definitely back on the affordable housing, because, like right up here, Jack Bond D7 on Instagram said 70% of U.S. citizens can't qualify for a loan on a house. And then down here, someone was, saying that they were scared that their daughter generation won't be able to own a house. That is very real, folks. Yeah. And not only that, to make it even worse, let's go 2 steps further. Sorry, now that we're on this little rant, all the housing is being bought up by the institutions like BlackRock and Blackstone. They're silently buying up all the housing, keeping the pricing high. Because listen, like, in light of all this stuff you're hearing, has anyone seen the pricing come down on the housing? Maybe in Florida a little bit in some of the sun belts, but housing prices have maintained quite well. Why? Institutions are buying them up, maintaining pricing. But not only that, like, not only are institutions buying up housing, one of the other things, and I can't remember who brought it up, but someone on here said, wait a second. Oh yeah, right here. Shane said commercial default are purchased the same as residential loans. So remember the reason that 2008 crash happened was because they took all those residential mortgages, wrapped them up and put a little bow tie on them and sold them off, CMOs. That's exactly what's happening in the commercial real estate world now, because all those commercial loans, do you think those banks hold on to those? Not at all. The bank issues it. Maybe credit unions and some community banks, but commercial banks, they pop those things out. It's like they pop them out and they send them off with a little bow tie to some fund or some REIT or someone else that buys that shit. And those things are toxic. Toxic. I just told you what's happening. So like, you haven't seen that in the markets yet. None of that news is coming out. Oh, you won't hear about that. Oh no. Can't talk about that. So is there a lot to be concerned on? Yeah. Is there a lot to be excited about? Yeah. I mean, let's get excited about Trump and what he did in the Middle East with Qatar and Saudis and like, just look at the reactions there. Peace in the Middle East. I mean, come on, that's a beautiful thing. And, he's out there UK now and where else? India might have a deal. We still haven't heard, I don't think that one's inked yet, but the India deal would be massive. India is the third largest economy, like period. They've got, like Arby says, we've got the meat. India's got the people. Man, do they have the people and the population. So if there's one country you were going to bet on that could literally stand the long haul, go with the population. India certainly could do it. If they could clean up their government a little bit, clean up their country a little bit, and get rid of this internal wars and everything going on, I think Pakistan. And if we could, like, I'm sorry, we're a little over, but man, this Israel shit pisses me off. Like, Israel's now going to bomb Iran. Like, did you see that? Israel's talking about bombing Iran. Oil prices are going up because of it. Like, since when did it, I got to be careful what I say, but since when did Israel get the gold card or the hall pass to just go out and just start wars with everybody? Like, I don't agree with that at all. Like, and it just seems like they're just out there just poking the bear every single day. I don't know enough to talk about that. I don't have the education. I don't have the data, but like, it just seems like all these wars and all these things, it just seems like Israel's right there, poking the bear, dropping the bombs. I don't know, Stephen. Probably should stay way away from that one, but had to bring that up.
One thing I will say, one thing that Trump did take from, I guess, kind of Israel is the dome. What do they call it? The big
dome. Yeah, now we're gonna have the gold dome.
So now Trump wants to come out with the golden dome defense shield design, and so we'll see where that goes.
How much was that? It was like a couple $100 billion or something like that.
I'd say 175 billion.
175 billion. The gold dome brings me back to what was that? What was that movie? The gold member.
You gotta love it, man.
Oh man. Anyway, with that being said, like some people are mentioning storage. Storage is a solid performer, especially if things get worse. People need storage. So there are still hot spots that you can invest money in. You just got to be really careful. You got to understand, and understand what you're talking about. But the first and most important thing is follow the 6 laws of wealth. And the first one is you must keep 10% of what you make. That's where you start, and nothing else can happen until you start there. So get on pace with that. Watch the YouTube videos at the Chris Naugle. We're going to be putting some fire out there recently, or we got a bunch going out now and a lot more good stuff. Join us this afternoon for the Wealth webinar, 1 p.m. Eastern. All you got to do is go on to chrisnaugle.com. Okay. Or go to the Chris Naugle on YouTube, and you can sign up to be part of the Wealth webinar. No cost at all. We go live 1 p.m. Eastern, and we will have a ton of fun. Stephen, you want to close this down?
Yeah, man. Awesome show today. Appreciate everybody being here. Like always, like I said, shoot over your topics. Anything you guys want to talk about, we'll get into it next week. Same place, same time. And we'll see you guys later today for Wealth webinar and Ask Me Anything.
See you this afternoon.
See ya.